I hope you have all joined again. So I was telling that any protein which has a sequence of about 20 amino acids together, which are all hydrophobic amino acids, then that particular protein can be said as having a transmembrane domain or transmembrane portion of the protein. Okay. All integral proteins have at least one such sequence, right? Okay, then there is another important term that is called as the hydropathy index. Okay, so this is actually a term which pertains to the property of a protein, okay, whether a particular protein has a membrane spanning segment or not. Okay, so that depends upon what is called as the amino acids, the presence of amino acids, okay, 20 amino acids at least in a sequence, in a row, okay, in that particular portion. So this is actually given by what is called as the hydropathy index of the amino acids. This is actually the free energy change which accompanies the movement of an amino acid that moves from hydrophobic solvent to water. Okay, so whenever a particular amino acid comes out from the hydrophobic region to water, then it is accompanied by a free energy change. For example, if it is a polar amino acid, then for the polar amino acid, it is easy for that amino acid to come out into water. Okay, and therefore this is a exergonic reaction. Whereas for the hydrophobic amino acid or non-polar amino acid, it is just the opposite. If it is going to go from the water medium into the membrane, then it is an endergonic reaction. Okay, and then for every amino acid, this particular energy which is associated, the free energy change associated, is known. Okay, we have known values for the different amino acids, right? So if for a particular sequence, that hydropathic index of all the amino acids is known, if we can add up all the you can say free energy change of each amino acid, then we get a particular value. Okay, we can get an average value, for example. Okay, or we can get the sum of all the values of the amino acids in that particular sequence. So that particular value indicates whether the particular portion, particular sequence of 20 amino acids is going to be a membrane spanning region or it is not a membrane spanning region. Okay, so this is like there is a window of 20 amino acids. So for example, if there are 100 amino acids in a particular sequence of a protein, okay, then out of those 100 amino acids, we take the first 20 amino acids. Okay, we calculate the hydropathy index of the 20 amino acids, and if that sequence has a particular value exceeding, say, a particular value, then you would say that that particular sequence is a membrane spanning region or not. Okay, and then you go for the next 20 amino acids, then you go for the next 20 amino acids, and so on, right? And that is how you can find out in a particular sequence of protein, okay, which region of that protein is a membrane spanning region or it is not a membrane spanning region, right? Just as an example I have given here, the most hydrophobic amino acids are isoleucine and valine. So these are the hydropathy indices. Isoleucine has the hydropathy index of 4.5. Valine has the hydropathy index of 4.2. Okay. And if it is hydrophilic amino acids, for example, arginine, then the hydropathy index is minus 4.5. And for lysine, it is minus 3.9. Okay, so if you have a sequence of 20 amino acids in a window, okay, then you are going to calculate all the hydropathy index. You are going to sum up all the hydropathy indices, okay, and then you get a particular value. So that value you are going to compare for every sequence, and if you have a very high value, then it means that the particular window of 20 amino acids is a segment of the protein which is either hydrophobic or hydrophilic. Okay, higher index will mean it is hydrophobic, and lower index means it is hydrophilic. Okay, I hope that makes some sense to you. Okay, and then this is an example where I have shown the membrane bilayer, and in the membrane bilayer there are different proteins, membrane integral proteins, And you will also see that these different proteins have different levels of complexity. Okay, for example, we have the potassium channel, then there is a maltoporine, which is responsible for transport of maltose sugar. Okay, then there is an OMP, that is outer membrane protein called 5-phospholipase A. Then there is an OMP again, that is outer membrane protein X. There is a phosphoporine E. So these different proteins are all membrane spanning proteins or membrane integral proteins. Okay. What is interesting here to note is that all the blue colored dots here, which are shown, these are all the hydrophilic amino acids. Okay. The red dots and the yellow dots are indicating that these are certain amino acids which are predominantly present at the interface. Okay. They are at the interface of the lipid bilayer and the water medium, aqueous medium. Okay, whereas the blue colored dots are actually in the aqueous medium. So these are all the hydrophilic amino acids. Okay, and these amino acids are sort of, you can say, hydrophobic amino acids, which are at the junction of the lipid bilayer and the aqueous medium. Okay, so let us look at the names of these amino acids. The blue colored dots here are lysine, arginine, glutamic acid, and aspartate. Okay, aspartic acid. Okay, so these are all present exclusively in the aqueous phase. These are all hydrophilic amino acids. Okay, then there is tyrosine and tryptophan. Okay, tyrosine and tryptophan are what type of amino acids are these? Yes. What did you say?
Aromatic amino acids.
These are the aromatic amino acids.
Aromatic amino acids.
Yes, very good. Okay, so they are aromatic amino acids, and you will find that they are positioned at the place where it is a junction of the hydrophobic lipid bilayer and the hydrophilic medium. Okay, that is water medium, right? So that is again a very characteristic thing for many of the transmembrane proteins. Okay, although the arrangement of the protein, the three-dimensional arrangement, is very complicated. Okay, but the different types of amino acids, based upon their chemical properties, they are positioned at a particular location, okay, with respect to the membrane. And that is very interesting because you know that the tertiary structure of the protein actually comes from the primary sequence of the amino acids. Okay, so it is the primary sequence which is very important. We all know that, and the sequence of these proteins is such that when the three-dimensional structure is formed, the particular types of amino acids will always come at a particular position. Okay, it may be either towards the cytoplasmic phase, or it may be towards the exterior of the cell, that is the receptor portion or the receptor domain of that particular protein, or it could be at the junction of the lipid bilayer and the aqueous medium, right? These are some of the proteins which I have shown here in the membrane, and these are all characterized by a beta barrel structure. Okay, that is the sheet. Okay, beta sheets are there. Okay, and these sheets in the three-dimensional structure or in the quaternary structure, you will find that these beta sheets which are there in the proteins, either it could be a single polypeptide or it could be multiple polypeptide, but they are forming a complex arrangement in the membrane, and that arrangement is looking like a barrel. It is like looking like a cylinder. Okay, so these are also called as receptor proteins, or these are also called as transport proteins, which are functioning in the transport of various types of molecules. For example, this is FEPA, that is ferrienterobactin molecule, and that is responsible for the transport of iron. Okay, and this is OMP, that is outer membrane protein for, I think it may be a lactose transporter. Okay, this is a maltoporine molecule for the maltose transport. And then here you have TOLC kind of a receptor which is in the membrane. And interestingly, you will find that that this is a very complicated structure where you have alpha helices here, and you also have the beta sheets in the membrane. Okay, so beta sheet is also actually present within the membrane, this region. Okay, so different types of complex molecules are formed in the membrane. They are all membrane associated or membrane integral proteins. Okay. Then one more point here is that for a particular sequence of protein, which is forming the beta sheet, okay, sheet-like structure, for that particular sequence to span the entire membrane, width of the membrane, 7 to 9 residues are required only. Okay, and in the case of alpha helix, we have seen that about 20 amino acids are required to span the membrane. And that the reason for this is that if you look at the structure of the beta sheet, then the sequence of the amino acids is actually an extended one. Okay, so it is a stretched portion of the protein, and therefore only 7 to 9 residues of amino acids are sufficient to completely span the membrane. Whereas for the alpha helix, which is a more of a coiled nature, okay, it is a compressed coil, and therefore 20 amino acid residues are required to span the membrane. Is that clear to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then we have see further complexities are there in certain integral proteins. We have lipids attached to the protein. Okay, so these are all lipoproteins. For example, phosphatidyl inositol. Okay, so this is actually a glycoprotein plus inositol is a sugar. Okay, glycoprotein plus lipoprotein. So such combinations are also there. And the reason for these lipids which are attached to the protein is probably to hold the protein in the membrane properly for firm anchorage into the protein. And therefore, these proteins are very tightly linked to the membrane. And not only that, but it also confers a kind of stability to the protein. Okay, so lipids side chains are there in a protein associated with the protein to give more stability to the protein molecule, right? So I've written it here. If you look at this sentence here, if there are more than one attached lipid moieties, then it gives more stability to the protein. And in addition to the lipids, there are also certain kinds of ionic interactions. Okay, there are positively charged amino acids, negatively charged amino acids. So these amino acids which are charged are also able to give a kind of stability to the protein by interaction with the membrane part, okay, or even by the interaction with the aqueous medium outside. Okay, so that actually holds the protein in a particular stable conformation in the membrane, right? So these are all the important factors which are responsible for conferring stability to the protein molecule. Okay, of course, there are so many different kinds of hydrogen bonds which are there. Okay, hydrogen bonding, there are other weak interactions. There are sulfide, you can say disulfide bonds in the protein. I think you have already studied that. So all these various types of covalent and non-covalent interactions, ionic interactions, okay, these are all responsible for conferring stability to the protein, in addition to the lipid which is associated with the protein. Okay, because lipid gives the firm anchorage to a particular protein within the membrane, right? Then another important role of the attached lipid is not only the anchorage of the protein, but there are you will find that for certain proteins, the presence of certain types of lipids is very much essential for the functioning of that particular protein. For example, if you look here, we have the proteins which have the phosphoinositol kind of a linkage, okay? And these proteins are always on the outer face, okay? And on the outer face, there are farnesyl or geranyl groups, okay? GPI anchors are on the outer face, and the farnesyl and geranyl groups are on the inner face of the protein, okay? That is to say, there is some kind of a polarity. Certain types of lipids are always on a particular side of the membrane. Either it may be the cytoplasmic side or on the external side of the membrane. Okay. And that particular arrangement of the lipids is not only for the stability of the protein, but it also is important for the functioning of the protein. If it is a receptor, for example, then the specific kind of sensing which takes place, that is also that is due to the type of the lipid moiety which is associated with the protein. Then another thing is, as I think I have told you earlier, that the lipid attachment is also important for the targeting of the protein. Okay, so a particular kind of a lipid attached to the protein will signal that particular protein to go to a particular site in the membrane and remain there, okay, remain stable at that particular site. So this kind of targeting is also an important function of the lipids. Okay, so this is one question which I have written here. This is for you. You are supposed to write down all the factors which contribute to the stability of membrane proteins. And then we come to the next important point, and that is the functions of the membrane. Okay. As I told you in the very first lecture, that membranes are very dynamic molecules, are able to carry out a variety of functions, both in the bacterial cells as well as in the eukaryotic cells. The flexibility of the membrane is due to a number of factors, including the lipids which are there in the membrane. Okay, it also includes the fluid characteristic of the membrane. We have seen that the membrane is a fluid membrane. Okay, and it is a fluid mosaic. Mosaic means what? The different molecules, for example, protein molecules are in the membrane in the form of a mosaic. You have already seen what is a mosaic tile in somebody's house, or maybe in your own house, isn't it? So what is the mosaic tile? It is a particular pattern which is formed, a design which is formed by putting small bits of certain material in the matrix material, in the cement, for example. Okay, so similarly here the proteins are there in the fluid kind of a membrane, and because the membrane is not a very rigid solid structure, these different things which are present in the membrane, the proteins, okay, especially the lipid kind of molecules, they are able to move freely in the membrane as if the membrane is a liquid membrane. But still the membrane is able to offer a lot of protection to the cell, isn't it? So in that sense, it is a solid membrane. But if you consider the movement of different molecules in the membrane and carrying out certain activities in the membrane, we call the membrane as a fluid membrane. Okay, so all these properties, that is the flexibility of the membrane, is also because of the fluidity. It is because of the lipids which are present in the bilayer. It is because of the movement of the lipids as well as the proteins in the membrane. Okay, and that is very, very important for many functions of the membrane. We have already seen the sporulation differentiation, where the membrane we have seen gets extended and then it covers the pre-spore, and then the pre-spore is converted into the forespore. If the membrane was not a flexible thing, then that particular process of sporulation would never have been complete, isn't it? The pseudopodia in amoeba are also an indication, or are also a good example of the flexibility in the membrane. Okay, and then other important examples are the you can say pinocytosis, or what you can say phagocytosis. Okay, so all these processes of ingestion, food and water by an organism is also because of the flexibility of the membrane. Okay, then coming to the lateral movement of lipids and proteins, we are not going to discuss it here because it is not there in the syllabus. The cell-cell interaction, cell communication, quorum sensing, adhesion of the cells to different surfaces. All these points are also important because of the properties of the membrane. But again, that is not in the syllabus, and so we are not going to discuss it right now. But if at all you want to discuss about that, maybe you can have your own small groups, discussion groups in the class, in the online fashion or offline when the college starts. And then you can start discussing about these points, because that is very important for the competitive exams. Okay. Then the third important aspect about the membrane flexibility is the transport of solutes. Okay. A very, very important role which is played by the membrane. And of course, we are not going to discuss it today itself. I'll stop the lecture today. And in the next lecture tomorrow, perhaps we are going to study about the transport of different nutrients across the membrane, which is a very, very important function of the membrane. Okay, so do you have any questions? Anything that you have not understood?
Sir, is that question for assignment?
Yes, yes. Yes, it is for your assignment. Okay, stability of the proteins. you are supposed to write down different factors which are important for stability, because that question is important. Had it been an offline exam, descriptive type, then that question would have been asked in the exam. And even if it is in the multiple choice type of a question, even there different factors might be, in the option, you will have to probably select the correct option, which is the factor responsible for stability of the protein. Okay, so from that point of view, this assignment is very important for you. Okay, and you can refer to Principles of Biochemistry by Leninger, because these points are appropriately discussed in that book. Is it okay? You can also refer to other books on biochemistry. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we will stop the lecture today. Goodbye.